Hello and welcome to our new episode of Dreams to Destiny. We have a really exciting guest for you today. That's Ashley Gowanlock. She is a three times Paralympic equestrian. She represented Canada three times in the Paralympics. And in our show, we really want to focus on the fact that each and every person in this world, you're created for a unique purpose, a purpose that is unique and powerful. And we thought Ashley would be the best guest for today because she has a really big dream and she's really pursued it in spite of a lot of difficult circumstances. So, Ashley, we want you to just firstly, we want to welcome you to the show. And also, if you can spend a few minutes and just tell us a bit about yourself and tell us a bit about the sport that you're involved in. We know it's called dressage, but a lot of our viewers may not be intimately aware. So if you can just introduce yourself, talk about what you do.
Absolutely. So first of all, thanks so much for having me. This is great. And so yes, as you said, my name is Ashley. And so I was born with something called cerebral palsy, which just basically means my body doesn't communicate well with my brain. So when I was born, I didn't get enough air to my brain, which meant that for a while, it kind of depends what part of your brain was damaged. And so the lower half of my body doesn't talk to the top half of my body very well. So at the age of 2, I was really struggling with physiotherapy. So my physiotherapist was like, you know what, we're going to trick her. We're going to put her on a horse and she'll be doing the same things that I do with her every day and she won't know. And then that was it. From about 2 on, I've been on horses for the rest of my life. And when I was 16, got into the sport of dressage, which is basically just like figure skating on a horse. So without the ice, you're kind of just dancing with the horse. And so it's a flat surface. There's no jumping, or there shouldn't be any jumping. And there's letters around the ring, and you're given a test. So it's like 10 to 15 movements. And then you have judges watching you at the Paralympics. There are 5 judges watching you from different angles, and they give you a mark for each movement. So if the movement is at the letter K, ride a 20-meter circle. Each judge is giving you a mark out of 10, being like 10, that's the most beautiful, harmonious circle I've ever seen. That, it looks like the horse is doing all the work and you're just sitting there. And then at the end, you're given a percent, just like you are in most tests, and the highest percent wins the day.
Well, thank you for that brief introduction, Ashley. One of the topics or the themes we try to unpack and talk through these conversation series we hold is on the topic of the importance of having a healed heart to pursue the dream or the destiny, or the bigger than your life purpose God has put inside you. So in your book, which is named My Opportunities Present Just as Obstacles, you wrote that horses are my soul healers. They pass no judgment and they look at the world through unbiased eyes. Could you share a bit more on this love journey, this healing journey you had with horses, which I believe has played a key role towards your own heart healing? So could you share and talk a bit on that, Ashley?
Absolutely. So again, if you saw me, like if I was standing in this frame, you would see that I walk with a crutch, and it's very obvious that I have a disability. Like my struggle, I cannot hide. Some people, most people, can hide their struggles. Mine is very out in the open for all to see. So growing up and even now, like I do not fit in this world. I am trying to fit into a world that's not built for me, doesn't think about my needs most of the time. And so on the back of a horse, you can't tell that I have a disability. Unless you're really looking, you can't say, oh yeah, she has cerebral palsy, she walks with a cane, and so the horse's legs become my legs, and I can run, and I can, and I can go really far and really fast. Like I have never run in my life, but on a horse, I can fly almost, and it's like such a freeing thing. So yes, I got involved in sport, but initially it was this thing for my soul that was freedom and belonging and allowed me to be just like my classmates and my friends who were playing all these sports, and so could I. And yeah, so that for sure. And if you ever get to go to a Paralympic Games, you'll see thousands of people with like, blind people riding horses and people missing a leg riding a horse. And so it levels the playing field quite a bit. And they're never like, oh, you can't do this, so get off, right? Or you don't belong here. So yeah, they're just, God created a beautiful creature in a horse that's always kind of reaching out and wanting to help and heal you, for sure.
Yeah, and Ashley, I've heard you mention in your book actually that about purpose and calling, and that's really one of our passions. And you mentioned that something that you know at your core that you were created to do, something that you know in your gut that you're supposed to be doing. And at some point, you realized that participating in the Paralympics was your core desire. How did you arrive at this? How did you arrive at your own calling? And how did you know that that is what you were destined to do?
Yeah, so I didn't grow up a Christian. I became a Christian when I was like 18, 19. I'm still the only like Christian in my immediate family. And it was funny when I went from unbeliever to believer, one of the first questions still to this day that a lot of people ask me is like, how can you believe in a God? Like, look what he's done to you, or like, don't you have enough faith that he could heal you? And I'm like, don't you think that that was one of the first conversations that we had? Like, hey, buddy guy, you apparently know me better than anyone else, so everyone else seems to think this cerebral palsy thing is an issue. So is it? Like, are you going to heal it? Because that would be absolutely awesome. But also, he made it very clear that, like, Ashley Gowanlock, you live a beautiful life. And I'm going to use you this way to show the world that their preconceived notions or their ideas of what a disabled person's life is supposed to look like and be like, and sort of like this, oh, I feel sorry for you. Like, that's not my story, right? And I'm going to use you of sorts to like rattle cages and like give people the opportunity to know you and meet you and change their minds of sorts. So do I like being uncoordinated and falling on my face more often than most people? No. But if the king of the universe says like, hey, I'm going to use you in powerful ways all over the world, I'm not going to argue with that.
So just building on what you just shared, Ashley, I remember reading in your book this statement. Every time I go through an obstacle, I hear the still small voice saying, can you trust me enough to see the blessing in this chaos? So can you share a bit more on this voice? How is this voice leading you today and guiding you in this bigger than life dream you're pursuing?
That's a great question. I think a lot of times we see struggle and we see hardship and we see something that's going to be hard. So preparing for a Paralympics, preparing for a World Games, I have personal things like family members who are suffering from disease. Those are all hard things that I wish sometimes weren't part of my story. But I also can't deny that every time I hit a wall and every time my tank is empty, my spirit is filled up from the reservoir that never runs dry. Like, God appears in a person, in a situation, in a circumstance, you needed this, and poof, here it is. Somebody provides a horse at the last minute to go to the Paralympic Games. Somebody shows up with the right piece of equipment. Like, there's just so many last minute, or sort of like, that was completely out of my control and completely not me. And so how do I know that God exists? Because he's shown up time and time again. And mostly it's when I'm at the end of my rope and my power is done, my ideas are out. And so in a weird way, when something horrible is happening, I'm like, wow, here is an opportunity to see how much I am loved and seen and known, and like have my faith a little bit bolstered, instead of being like, oh, I want to turn and run. Like, I'm going to lean into this sort of thing because I know who's going to catch me on the other side.
And actually, in some ways, what you said, Ashley, also connects to the question I asked earlier of how do you know that this is what you're supposed to do? And I kind of found one of the answers in your response just now when you said that you were in a situation where it seems like a dead end, like someone had to provide you a horse or finances, which was one of the cases in your book where you needed the finances to travel to Beijing, correct? And the Lord just came through. And in my mind, that's one of the biggest proofs that this big hairy goal that you're working towards, that the Lord is in it when you see the supernatural provision. Would you agree? I have another question. And did you ever want to give up? Did you ever reach a point where you were doubting whether is this really what I'm supposed to do? Yeah.
Oh, like 100,000 times that, like people see on Instagram, or we have a bunch of social media now. They see the like shining moments of a career. Like, you see me posting that I'm in Europe, living in England and Belgium and Germany and France and the Netherlands, and I'm going to all these places like Rio and Beijing and England. Like, that must be amazing, which all of those things were. That is true and correct, but also there are so many hard, difficult things that happen to get to those places that you're like, if you only knew how much I have like dragged my broken, tearful, like, I tried this and I failed, and I opened this door and it failed, and maybe I should just throw my hands up in the air and quit. So many times. But I think, again, you see another aspect of God and his provision and his love, because you see the community in which he had placed me in when I was still doing sport, and is today placing me in, and just like, hey, if you're not in a place where you have the faith to see the end goal, if I'm sitting and I'm defeated, someone comes and is like, here, I'll hold your arms up for you, I'll pray for this for you, I'm going to connect you with this person and that person. So you see that, like, he's not just this mystical out here kind of guy. He works through people and through people listening to promptings and prayers, and like, hey, you've just been on my mind, I thought I would check in, and somehow they have exactly what you need. So that was also a sweet, for sure, I cannot deny there were plenty of times where I was like, what am I doing? But again, in those moments, I have seen the sweetness of God in his people.
Yeah, talk about dreaming, Ashley. I do believe you're pursuing an uncommon dream, or you were pursuing, because your dream, it did not just make sense to you one night in your adult life or anything. In your book, you mentioned that this was a dream you pursued, you cherished, you nourished as a young child. So I believe when you're called to pursue an uncommon dream, sometimes we do need to be, careful in terms of who you end up sharing with, or, which of your friends will have, access to it. And you mentioned in your book also that the bigger the dream is, the harder you need to work at it to keep it alive and protect it. So can you share a bit on that young girl who dreamt so big that one day she wanted to represent Canada in the Paralympics? How did you manage to, protect it, keep it alive, work hard at it, and especially from naysayers or predators, who would want to come and steal it or kill it?
Yeah, such a good question. I think, for one, God wired me in a way, like, even before I knew him, he created me in a way that is just very, like, here, you're going to need some extra sass, and you're going to need some extra resilience, and you're going to need some extra joy, and just the ability to find the good in a situation, or laugh at yourself. So for one, I'd say I'm wired that way. I lean towards things that are possible, and that even hard things going to be fun, and I'll find a moment where I'll be able to laugh and sort of enjoy this experience. And then also just, yeah, that's how I would say, you just, again, it sounds so funny, but I know in my pit that, like, hey, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I can see, even writing a book, I didn't know what I was going to write, but I could envision I held the book in my hand before the book was even written. So I think in certain ways, if it is a God-given thing, it kept coming up in my dreams, in my thoughts, and I could see the end. Like, I saw myself as a 6-year-old standing on the podium at an Olympic Games, or standing in front of a bunch of flags symbolizing that I was at the Olympics. So just when you have that core, like, knowing and feeling, there's something about it that just like fans the flame of your soul. You're like, nah, I don't see the path through, but I have seen the end result. And I have asked over and over again, Lord, if I'm going to go to the Paralympics, you better come with me. Lord, if I'm going to write a book, you better tell me exactly what I'm supposed to write. Like, I never planned to write a book. I just wrote journal entries, and then people kept reading them as I would update, and they were like, oh, you have to write a book. And one night in England, I literally was just going to bed and like, hey, God, what do you want to say today? And he was like, here's the title of your book. Here are all the chapters. Here's what I want you to write about. Go for it. Like, it was all sort of laid out for me.
Amazing. I noticed that every chapter in your book is a blessing of some sort. Even things that people don't consider as blessings, like the blessing of dart throwers, for example, things like that. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you something about the mind. So we like to focus on our show about the importance of a healed heart and a healed mind. And Jane already touched on healed heart. And so my question is, how did you train your mind during this time as you were preparing for the Paralympics? You mentioned that you had to be away from home for a long time, I think 9 months or something like that. And there were challenges back home. There were family members that were dealing with a lot of medical conditions, which were quite burdensome. So how did you keep your mind so focused and train yourself to be an athlete, and tuning out all of the other voices that try to distract you?
I think, again, for one, it's super helpful to have those mentors or people. I had 2 or 3 people that I would go to and be entirely honest with, right? Like a teammate that I had that was just like, here's my struggle, here's how I see it, help me see it a different way. Or I had, a sports psychologist that like became like a family member to me, where it's just like, he helped me sort of like, he would say, preparing for an Olympics or something, and I'd be like, I'm not ready, like this is happening at home and the horse is broken, and he was like, I'm envious of you. And that just sort of like, whoa, like I'm doing something that the vast majority of people on this earth will never get to experience, right? Like, I'm at my 3rd Paralympic Games, so you can't kind of sort of like, you worked to get here, don't destroy it by letting your mind run away with you. Like, kind of see it as you are in a place of honor, and like, so, and you can use your platform of sorts. So that was helped to sort of like always tweak your the way you were looking at things. And I mean, again, it helps that I don't take myself super seriously. So that like humor is super helpful, and just having people around you and knowing when you need to be by yourself. Like, there's definitely times where you're like, nope, I can't be an extrovert right now. I have to go and like write in my journal and talk to God, right? And just pour it out to him and let him help me direct my perspective.
You mentioned that my kindness is free, but my respect and trust has to be earned. And you end up saying, thank you for the dart throwers in my life for teaching me this valuable lesson. When I read that, it honestly, profoundly touched a nerve on my heart too. And I was so able to identify with it, and I was reminded of the times when I was struggling to live this principle out in a practical way. And I know, Ashley, you are now, you have a, quite respected, honored, like public life where you're asked to come and, do talk shows or share on your life journey. And I'm sure you have a private life as well. So as a leader, like how do you live this principle out in a very practical way? Or if someone is watching today and they have the same question, what would be some of your tips or advice you might be giving to such a person?
For sure. Well, yeah, again, for one, I think we have this idea, especially as Christians, that you have to be nice and kind and welcoming to everyone, which is great. You should be like Jesus to everyone that you meet, but that doesn't mean that you allow them to take swipes at your soul or judge your story. Or so there are certain times where you can be like, I can be kind to this person, but I'm not letting them into my inner circles. And I know that like they are actually probably not attacking me. They are something within their story is hurt by what I'm walking through right now. So it helps to kind of separate. It's not a personal attack. When you look at me and you think, oh, how do you do that? It's not because of something that I did. It's because they had a dream. They had a goal that they wanted, and for whatever reason, I didn't get to pursue it in the same ways that I do or I did. And so it's kind of you're hitting a nerve for them. So that helped to kind of take away the like, ooh, people are gonna say mean things. And again, you just have to know that when people don't know your story, so if you haven't read my book or you don't know some of the struggles that I've gone through, you just make assumptions and you spew out things, right? And so you sort of have to be ready to be like, oh, I'm going to put on this filter where this person doesn't get to stand super close to my soul because they haven't shown me that they have the ability to handle it well. So just because I'm a leader or what, it doesn't mean that I open the door to everyone. I'm very selective actually to who comes through that door, and you earn that by showing up over and over again. And like my leadership style is I would love to cheer you on and let you take the lead. But in order to do that, my soul has to be in the right place first. I have to come from a place of humility and rest, and that my soul is charged and ready to cheer on your soul. Because if I'm broken and wounded and like ready, have a chip on my shoulder that says, nobody sees me, everybody thinks I'm worthless, I'm not going to be much of a leader. So yeah, you have to have those people where you're like, oh, this really hurt my soul. Can you help me like pull out this arrow and heal me? And it like, speak to me, tell me the truth, because right now I don't see the truth. And for sure that has happened. I would say I'm a very like positive, cheerful person, but words hurt and people hurt people and hurt people hurt people. So you have to have that like backup of, okay, who am I going to go to that's going to tell me the truth and bring me back to the feet of Jesus, kind of.
So Ashley, I would like to ask you about joy. You mentioned that how God made you quite uniquely and gave you more resilience, more joy, and sass, as you mentioned. But especially about the joy, I read in your book that you talk about many incidences where you broke out laughing. Like I think you and a few of your competitors were getting on a bus and you all fell over and you were all laughing. So and I was quite intrigued by that because it's like a contagious kind of a joy that really kind of goes through the atmosphere, changes the atmosphere. So could you talk about it? Like, is it something that is just inborn? Did you have to cultivate it? Is there a connection between the joy that you carry and the resilience and the the focus towards your goal?
Yeah, for sure. I would say a little bit of both. Like, as I mentioned, I think that God, when creating me, was just like, hey, I know the story that you're going to walk through, so here's a little extra of this and a little pop of that. But at the same time, again, it's this choice, right? Like, I fall down a lot more than most people. Everyday things are harder for me than they will be for you. Putting on shoes is like running a marathon, like cooking food. I pray a lot, like, Lord, I'm about to hold a boiling pot of water, like, make me
Right.
coordinated, right? So I can choose to not do those things. I can choose to not sit ski or bungee jump or skydive because I am not physically able. Or I can choose to say, like, my soul wants to experience these things, and I know it's going to be harder, and I know it's going to be a struggle, but the success at the end, the like achievement of just like, I did it, I dragged my broken body up this mountain, and here we sit at the top, is just like this elating feeling. And I rode horses all around the world when people said I had no business dreaming about being a Paralympian, and yet here I sit, right? There's this sense of accomplishment of like, man, that was hard, and there were so many times that I wanted to give up, but here I be, and look at the person that I became because of those things, right? Like, hard things give you character and more resilience, and because you know that you're not going, the end is not the end. You're not going to die because this is really hard. You're going to grow as a human.
I'm wondering if someone is watching us today, or someone who might listen into this video sometime in the future, and they are going through a really tough time. It could be a physical challenge, or an emotional, or a mental disability or a challenge, and they're almost at the verge of giving up on their dreams, or maybe even just their life. What would you say to them?
I would first just like want to sit down and say, like, who is your community? Who do you have around you that is pouring into you, that is encouraging you, that is picking you up when you fall? Like, go and find that community. I know you're not created to be by yourself or feel lonely or feel that it's all up to you. You're supposed to exist within a system that lifts you up when you fall. And then I would say, like, look for the things that bring you the most life. Like, on the back of a horse, my soul is flying. When I speak to people like this or in front of a crowd, like, my soul is alight. I know that this is what I was made for because something in my soul stirs. So look for those things that bring you life. For me, it's horseback riding and public speaking. For you, it might be cooking or reading or writing or hiking or whatever is your thing. Look for that thing and really dig in and hold on. And there are choices that you have to make. The Bible says that life is hard, and it's going to be hard. Even when becoming a Christian, you're not going to live this like pristine white picket fence, everything always goes your way life. Like, life is hard, and we live in a broken world, and there are things that is just going to hurt your soul. But know that there is a King of Kings. There is God who is ready and willing to hear your hurt and speak to your souls and really like transform you. He doesn't want to keep you in this place of brokenness and hurt or shame or whatever it is that you're facing. He doesn't want you to think that there's no other choice than to end your life. He wants you to know him and meet him and talk to him and realize that you are a child of his, like a father, right? Like, he wants to be that for you. So allow for that possibility to be, right? Allow for that freedom and healing to come. Like, that is a possibility. Anticipate that the King of Kings is who he says he is, and that you can trust him, and his word is true from thousands of years ago to today, right? Like, that is why I stand where I stand, because I believe, right? I believe when I walk out. It's not a nice idea. It's not only when I'm sad or when I need a little pick-me-up, like it's constant. It is a choice that I have made and a belief that I hold. And so hold that anticipation that something beautiful is coming. Even in the midst of brokenness, he can create beauty.
What a story of God finding Ashley and Ashley finding God.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your life and your journey with us, Ashley. I'm sure this has definitely, stirred our faith and has encouraged and inspired me and Joey for sure. And I
Yes.
believe it's the same for any one of you watching today.
We would highly recommend you to go and check her book, which is called My Opportunities Just Present as Obstacles. It is available on Amazon as well. And
so where can people find you, Ashley, if someone wants to have a conversation or reach out to you? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Ashley Gowanlock on Facebook. You can find her equestrian athlete, Ashley Gowanlock. You can find me on Instagram. You can send me an email. I can leave my email with you if you want the book. I can mail you the book.
And as I always love to close by saying that Jesus loves you, as you just heard from Ashley, no matter what your past is, what's the biggest fear you have about your future, what has happened to you, what you have done, no matter what your story is, story has been even till today, there is a good, living, loving God out there. His name is Jesus. He wants to give you a brand new start, heal your heart, heal your mind, and give you everything you need to pursue your calling and destiny, or just go and pursue this uncommon, impossible dream, just like you heard our dear guest Ashley share today.
So if you need to reach out to us or Ashley, please do that. As you again heard that you don't need to struggle alone because help is out there. It's all about taking that first step and reaching out. So we will be back again soon with another amazing guest to learn and grow together. Till then, have a great week and God bless you.